Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and in today's video we've got some big news. We've got some huge buffs to the Necropolis League, so much so that it's almost unrecognizable after these buffs. It goes from about a 3 all the way up to like an 8 or a 9, at least for me, and that is a huge deal because this league mechanic definitely has a lot of potential, and I've been messing with it, man, and I can see it. I actually fully believe some people are making mirrors off of using the Necropolis League right now. It's just they're not telling anybody about it. But hopefully we can find out all we need to know to get some massive crafts going. But in this video, we're going to be talking about the buffs, and we're also going to be talking about some brand new discoveries that I've made about the Necropolis, so you guys can get some even more juice for your own crafts, or alternatively, you can learn more about how to sell and get rid of corpses for big cash and stack up those exalts on divines and chaos orbs. Alright, so without further ado, let's get into it. So, to cover things first, if you guys don't know anything about Necropolis crafting, you want to learn, you want to craft some insane items, go watch my previous video. It explains everything about how to craft items. Even if you're like kind of a noob, it will hopefully make sense to you, so go check that out first. But first and foremost, let's cover these buffs. So first buff on the docket here is the big one. We will be allowing you to itemize corpses as they drop. So you can choose to collect the corpse or itemize it for free. As a result, itemizing corpses in all contexts will now be free, as opposed to the 1 Chaos Orb it currently costs. So the biggest problem with Necropolis League was the storage. You could only have so many corpses, and if you wanted to exceed that limit, you had to pay 60C to empty the full Necropolis into your stash, and that would then impose a cost on doing the mechanic, which no one likes, especially if you're not wealthy. Once you have a ton of money, it's fine, but most people aren't in that position, so it just created a really feels bad to do the mechanic. And if your corpses didn't sell, you didn't know what to capture, oh man, it sucked. And this basically immediately fixes that. First and foremost, you now effectively have unlimited storage space for your Necropolis because it's as big as your stash is, because you can now make them drop as items. So you loot it, you put it in your stash, anyone can buy it, you can choose to save it for later, you can easily search through them now because you have the rejects. It's just fantastic, and it's really going to be a big step up and allow you to save all of those corpses up for the big crafts that you want now. So this change all by itself was so big that I think it fundamentally changes how the mechanic is going to play, and there absolutely will be a lot of money to be made with finding corpses. Filling up quad tabs of corpses and selling them in bulk, that is going to be gigantic, because you can make some absolutely disgusting items with the Necropolis League, as I have actually done myself now, which is pretty damn awesome. Okay, so that is the first big change. Alright, next up, each of the downsides from area to area will now display the increase to the amount of collectible corpses and all flame emblems they cause. So overall, I think it's just a bit of cure well. It's not really any buffs. It's just, kind of exposing some extra information. Next up, we will be increasing the amount of collectible corpses and all flame embers dropping relative to difficult mods substantially. So my interpretation of this is we're just going to get more corpses and more all flames. So for me, I already got a lot of corpses in my gameplay. It was ridiculous, actually, how many corpses I got with all the nodes. So this is just going to make so many corpses fly all over the place. It's going to be insane. Now, in the all flame department, if you guys didn't know, there's actually quite a few good all flames which do allow you to make a lot of money, but it's fair to say I've been getting a lot of all flames myself, and I've been using some of them here or there, so even more of them is just going to make that even better. You'll get more of the good ones, and you can actually kind of start using them for pretty consistent strategies, which I'm a big fan of, and we'll be talking about those in some future videos as well, which is pretty awesome. Next up, we'll be further increasing, sorry, not this one, we'll be adding new all flame ember packs that are more rewarding. So this is pretty gigantic. So one of the biggest issues with all flames is some of them actually are just not worth using. They reduce the amount of monsters in the map. Like the Abyss one is a good example of that. Some of the other ones also are pretty bad, and their itemized rewards that they drop are not worthwhile in the economy, meaning that they are actually a net negative to put on your map. And not only that, they make the map substantially harder. So this, making it so that all flames are more rewarding is really big, and they're also going to be adding hopefully some bigger increases in terms of the pack size and stuff like that to the current ones. It should always be a buff to your map to apply an all flame, and hopefully after this is implemented, that is the case. It says, also, we will be revising the rewards and pack size from existing, which is just what I said there, which is good. All Flame Ember packs in endgame to make them substantially more rewarding also. So basically, what I want in this scenario here is that when you're juicing up a map and you're making it a mega map, you should want to use, 2 or 3 All Flames. They don't even have to be the good variety, but that should just give you more monsters, give you more juice, and make you feel much better about the map. And it does seem like that is the case after this. So All Flames, honestly, should essentially operate like Sextants used to, adding more monsters, adding new unique effects, and also more loot. And that does seem to be the case there. So mapping is going to get a whole lot better. And also crafting has already become a whole lot better. Next up, we will be making the devoted modifiers more rewarding, notably the ones that grant currency items. This is also huge. It's going to make Alchemist mapping a lot nicer, and overall it's going to make the mechanic feel a lot better. And when combined with All Flames, I think that's going to be pretty insane, because these two things stack multiplicatively with each other here. Next up, we are lowering the danger of the more dangerous monster modifiers, especially at endgame. Thank goodness. There's been too many one-shots, so I think that's a big deal as well. So next up, grave crafting. You will now be able to select the base type of the item you want to craft. Okay, so this is massive. This combined with the other one is just ridiculously huge. So this actually makes crafting weapons viable in the league mechanic. Previously, if you wanted to craft something like an elemental damage wand, it was not possible in the league mechanic, because you can invest 88 corpses and get a like a carved wand when you didn't want that, or something like that. It would just be terrible. A carved wand would actually be good, but you could get something like like a bad wand, and it would be not suitable for attacks. Similarly, on bows, you could get a bad bow base. So this is gigantic. It is a massive step in the right direction, and it's going to be big. And then they're also saying that they are removing some of the kind of crafts which are like the dexterity, intelligence, and armor, which are able to influence the base type previously. This is actually a buff, which you guys might not realize, but this is huge. A lot of the more common corpses that dropped were actually this, and they sucked. Very few people ever wanted them, they weren't sellable, and they just clogged up your corpses. And you would very, very frequently just delete all of these, and they basically really were bad. So we're essentially getting them removed, which means the average quality of a corpse has gone up substantially as well. Now, you still will need special ones for Alice base types, but I think that's completely suitable. That is completely fine. Now, next up, we are increasing the chances of many of the rarer crafts like fractured and mirrored outcomes. Okay, this is also pretty huge in terms of crafting for profit or trying to acquire certain things with the mechanic. This is gigantic. So these are the meta crafting modifiers. Now, the mirrored one is definitely pretty expensive. The fractured one is even more so. I really hope they also include the extra copy one in this, because those are all pivotal in making good items, which I'll show you guys later as we did start to implement these. But crafting 2 items at a time instead of 1 is going to make it obviously twice as good. And fracturing is a whole other kettle of fish, which allows the mechanic to be used as a stepping stone. So these are all good buffs. Making them significantly more common means that you and I are going to have a chance to use them, and even everyone can use them, kind of what I'm saying. Next up, we've got we've removed the tiers from most of the crafts. They'll now have the values of the existing highest tiers always. For example, instead of being able to get 200 or 500% increased chance for lightning modifiers, it will now always be 500. So this is absolutely crazy. So when looking at crafts for this mechanic, you need an absolute metric ton of modifiers to get exactly what you want. So this is an amulet we were crafting for profit here. You can see that we needed 8,000% increased gems. It simply is not viable to use the lower tiers of crafts, because there's actually not enough slots in the graveyard if you want to get all of the modifiers you want to use the lower tier ones. So basically, you are in a scenario in which the majority of your corpses were low tier, some of them were trash, you could not store them, and you needed the really high tier ones to do anything. So it was basically just miserable, and they have made it so you get the high tier ones now only. So if we were using 100, we would need ridiculous, we need 80 corpses, but now with the 500 guaranteed for this gems, for example, we only need 16, which is huge. The amount of corpses you need on average, when you're finding them to make a good item has just plummeted, which is fantastic. So we're going to be making a lot more items, which are a lot better. Okay, moving on here. Next up, we have taken all the crafts that affect the modifier rating and compressed it into a single craft that affects all modifiers instead of being type specific. This will not affect existing crafts you have. So I don't actually exactly know how to interpret this one. You guys can maybe comment down below. But overall, I'm kind of curious to see how this one plays out. I actually don't understand what that means, but all the rest of them are huge, very, very huge. Next up, you will be able to directly use coffins on your list of corpses in the Maw panel instead of trying to find them within the Maw. This is gigantic. It's going to speed things up substantially. So you're just going to come over to this guy, dump them all into the coffins. But honestly, I don't see too many people actually using this functionality, as it is going to be faster to just drop them on the floor in your maps, assuming that you don't have problems with filling up entire inventories. So I'm probably going to be doing that myself. So while this is nice quality of life, it's probably not absolutely mandatory to have in this list. Lastly up here, we will be sorting crafts by their type instead of by level, making it easier to find crafts that affect a specific type of modifier, like fire modifiers. So the way I interpret this is going to be going ahead and taking a look at this guy. Instead of having them be all over the place here, it's going to couple them together. So all of your attack ones will be all together, which will be outstanding for people still using this menu here to mess with their corpses here. But again, I'm just going to be putting all mine in my stash and taking them out as needed. And finally, we have the grave crafts that reroll sockets and links have been significantly buffed. So this one is actually particularly interesting because it will potentially just allow you to print 6 links if it is buffed enough. On average, you need 1500 rerolls of fusings to get what you want. So I'm very interested to see if you can, pretty much print 6 links with insane modifiers. That would be very, very interesting. So overall, it's just win after win after win. All of these are incredibly powerful buffs, and I fully expect after this that corpse hunting will be very, very much worth it. So crafting, you will need to use less graves overall. You'll get more chances at the meta modifiers, and the quality of all of your crafts will go up. It's also much easier to have corpses on you because you can have them all in your stash, and then you can put them in the corpse locations that are required there. So overall, massive, massive, massive. But the biggest change, in my opinion, is actually on the currency side. First and foremost, you can actually find corpses easily, get them easily, put them in quad tabs, easily sell them, or just list them. That's huge. Right now, even some of the corpses are worth 70 or 80C up to a div, so if you guys weren't engaging in corpse farming before, it's definitely worth it now. So yeah, that's going to be good. And bulking even some of the other corpses, like increased and tier rating and all sorts of stuff like that, is going to be big money. If you have like 100, plus 50 attack tier corpses, some mega mogul crafter is definitely going to buy all of those off you, and you can make some extra divs that way. And it is part of Alchon Going, which is going to make a lot of strategies more profitable, which I'm very excited about. And then of course, on top of that, you have the all flame changes, which are gigantic as well. So overall, the quality of life is off the charts, the power level increase is off the charts, and Grimro's happiness is off the charts. So very, very nice indeed. Okay, so let me go over a few of the findings here for you guys on my Necropolis journey here, because there has been quite a bit of time since my last video, and I want to give you guys the inside scoop on what I've learned since that time. So let's come back here. We have made 2 gigantic, kind of discoveries in the Necropolis department here, but I want to show you guys some items first. So first and foremost, me and my friend Stark, we made a scepter for his build, the Exsanguinate Miner here, and we actually learned a lot of lessons from making this scepter. But you can see here that the modifiers on it are increased spell damage, increased crit chance for spells, 32% crit multi, and +1 to physical spell skill gems. All fantastic things for an Exsanguinate Miner. But there is one modifier here which looks a little bit sus. One which a miner would not be thrilled to have, and that is lightning damage to attacks here. Now this was supposed to be +1 to all spell gems, but we didn't get that because we made a mistake. Now, this scepter overall was a success still nonetheless. In my opinion, it's a good scepter. It's just not a potentially best in slot one. But overall, it's pretty good. Now, what was the mistake? Well, this is the first lesson I want to give you guys in this video here. The mistake is that we actually ended up using this modifier here. Pretty late in the craft, we decided we wanted to be a 5-mod scepter instead of a 6-mod scepter. And that would introduce a scenario in which we could either roll 2 prefixes and 3 suffixes, or 3 prefixes and 2 suffixes. Now, our plan only had 2 suffixes in it, so we weren't going to be too thrilled if one of our prefixes got turned into a suffix. So what we decided to do was use this modifier here, 300% increased chance of prefixes. Now, what this modifier essentially does is take all the prefixes on the scepter and increase them all by 300% as a blanket rule. Now, what we had done prior to this is basically remove all of the modifier's chance to roll other than caster. And we also nailed this mod out of here as well by reducing mana. So basically the only chance to roll of all the modifiers was spell damage, the gem modifiers here, and that was it. Everything else had been completely turbo nerfed and nuked. We'd used a lot of corpses to make that happen. And what we actually essentially did by messing around with the prefixes is essentially rebuff all of those chances. Now that's particularly relevant because this low weighting here has no chance at beating out even the other modifiers if they have any sort of increases at all. So we essentially create a scenario in which we ruin the item by using that corpse here. So my advice here for you guys is to not use blind kit modifying crafts on your items, especially not blindly. And I would even go out as far as to say I would not use the prefix and suffix increases at all myself any further. I think that they are just too generic and they actually do more harm than good for your item, and it is probably just better off to even go for a bit of a gamble than going ahead and using those modifiers, because as you could see, it ruined our item. Now that is tip number 1. Now tip number 2 is based on the second item we ended up crafting, which actually was amulets. So we decided we wanted to craft some amulets, plus 2 amulets specifically, and this was the setup here we went with. So you can see we made everything scarce, we tiered everything up, and then we increased gems by 8,000%. And we also increased some of the other modifiers as well, and we also gave it a 100% chance to be mirrored. Now the idea here was that we could print plus 2 amulets and hopefully sell them for a pretty big profit here. Now we did actually end up making a plus 2 amulet here, but as you can see, the other modifiers on here are not too good. And the reason for that is because we ran out of corpse slots. Now that has already been remedied by the buffs. Fortunately, now corpses are just on average much better. We used a lot of like low tier corpses, like 25 tier rating and stuff like that. Those are all going to become 50 and 100s. So overall, we can make this item a lot better. But in its current state, it's not bad. It's just not great. In addition to that, we also used too many corpses of a specific type as well, which I will try and explain as well. But overall, it was a pretty big success, I think. Going at it again, I would definitely change a lot to do with this amulet. I'm pretty confident we could get 3 really good suffixes if I had more corpse slots to work with, and also I had more knowledge, which I now do. So overall, I'm pretty happy with that. If you're curious, it's about a 4 or 6 divine amulet, and we did duplicate it, so it's mirrored. So I think we will be able to get, like 10 or 12 divs, maybe only 8 divs for the pair, which could be pretty damn good as well. But of course, you can make these, hopefully a lot easier in the new patch. And if you are a lot better and you had a lot better recipe, then you could probably make it even better. Now, I fully expect, playing with this mechanic quite a lot, doing a lot of theory crafting with it quite a bit as well, that people are going to be rolling around with recipes that make, or have a high chance to make, 6 tier 1 modifier items. Like, I pretty much have no doubt that there's going to be some items that you can craft deterministically, which just give you that outcome. And it's going to be a harvest scenario, kind of. You get the corpses, you put them in, you get your item, that's kind of it. And it is going to be a bit of a gamble. You can't get everything to 100% chance to be exactly right. But you can very deterministically get the outcome you want, or close to it, assuming you don't make any mistakes. But this amulet here, we actually did take our Necropolis crafting up another tier in order to craft it efficiently, or well, somewhat efficiently. Obviously, it's not a very good amulet, but it's decent nonetheless. So what did we do? Well, we started employing meta modifiers on the craft here. So you can see here that there is some modifiers in Necropolis, which you might not be interested in using in the past, but are actually very, very potent. Okay, so there's this one here, 40% increased effect of beast corpses adjacent to this corpse. That means that any corpse which are left, right, up, or down to this corpse will get 40% increased effect, assuming it is the right corpse type, which is beast in this case, which is a huge buff, because it means if this corpse is in the middle of 4 other corpses, you're essentially getting kind of 160% value from that corpse slot because you're increasing them so much. And that means that this is going to technically save you space, and if you use it on the right corpses, if this is cheaper than the corpse you're boosting, will also save you money, which means this is a big efficiency gain. Alright, now there's also other things which do similar effects. There is ones which increase the effect in columns and rows, which are even, in my opinion, more powerful. So 25% increased effect of corpses in grave row and column. So you can put these in the row and the column and get stuff done. Now, what would you want to use these super duper powerful modifiers on? Well, as I mentioned, you can use them on the normal modifiers, maybe the ones which are a little bit rarer or harder to get, but the main thing I think you're going to want to use this on is actually the chance to mirror, copy, or split. Now, that's exactly what we did in our kind of corpse craft there on the amulet. We got a 100% chance to create a mirrored copy of this. Now, this actually exceeds 100%. So if you have 200% chance to create a mirrored copy, you get 3 items. 400%, sorry, 300% is 4, 400% is 5, and it just keeps going and going and going. So you can make so many of these amulets. So you're in a place where you can make a fully deterministic item most of the time. It's like 90%, 89% to get exactly what you want if you do set up the craft just right, and then you can mirror it. And I think if you were to stack mirror and copy, it might make the copy and then mirror all the copies. So it could get pretty wild, man. It's pretty high potential, pretty crazy. So yeah, that's pretty damn awesome. But there is a big problem. If you want to set this up just right, you are going to have to figure out the Necropolis, right? Because it's not exactly easy to understand what is going on here. Where are you going to want to put the graves? Where are you going to want to put the meta modifiers? Where is anything going to go? Well, that's why I decided I had to plot out the Necropolis in a spreadsheet here, and that's exactly what I've done. This is basically exactly the Necropolis. You can see all of the different tiles here. There's 88 tiles in total, and it's a one-to-one representation of what the Necropolis is. And you can easily plot out where you want to put these special meta modifiers for your big, juicy craft. And that is going to make your craft substantially more likely to succeed, but also substantially, hopefully, cheaper, which is huge. So overall, this is the corpses, but where are you going to want to place these corpses? Well, we decided to put our mirror corpse right bang here, and we surrounded it by 4 other increased corpses. So right off the bat, we have the mirror corpse, which is 20%, and we increase it by 160%. So that takes it over 40%, which is a pretty good start. Next up, we placed a column here and a row here, which increases the mirror by 25% each respectively here. So we're already at 210%. But what we didn't know until we actually did it is that the column and rows actually increase the increases. So it takes it from 40% to 50%, which is insane. So we're actually at a 250% increase of the mirror modifier there, which is pretty damn juicy if I do say myself. Alright, so what the effect of this essentially is that you only need 2 mirror corpses to get the full effect of 100%. You put one here, which will allow it to get over 60%, and then you put one here in the same cross configuration. You don't even need to use the rows and columns, and that will give you a 100% chance to mirror your item, meaning you get one for yourself and one to sell. Or if you want to sell both, that could also net you a pretty good profit. So overall, doubling the amount of corpses available to you. Now, if you want to do this with the copy, which is only 10%, you will need to employ more of these crosses and columns and rows in order to get the same desired effect, but that could be even more powerful. And if you want to put the two together, you're kind of on your own, because that uses so many corpse slots. I'm not really sure how to optimally do that. But overall, that is kind of the map out there. You definitely want to use it. And overall, it can also be worth using these columns and rows outside of the really expensive modifiers as well. Because if I was to put a row here, for example, I could boost everything in this row by 25%, which is an effective value of 175%, meaning this corpse is not only as good as the rest of the corpses here and essentially copies their effect, but it also does it almost again, because it's 175% of all of these increased effects, right? So that's really, really cool. Very, very nice indeed. All right, so that is the corpse configuration there. Make sure that you use the rows, columns, and the adjacent ones can also be very effective. I would only really use the adjacent ones on the big crafts, like mirrored ones. So that is kind of where we're at here. Now, to round out this video, we're getting pretty long in the duration here, so I'm going to stop there, but it's fair to say there's a lot more to unpack with Necropolis, and fortunately for us, Craft of Exile has released a massive update to their website, which also shows you all of the impacts of all the different modifiers, so you can begin crafting your own items as well. So I'll close out the video just saying that I'm planning on releasing videos on exactly how to build a graveyard to exactly create an item with an exact chance. I'm pretty sure the first one I'm going to try to do is bows after the patch, and maybe attack-based wands. And I really hope that helps you out, guys, so you guys be able to collect the corpses and have a very good chance of getting exactly the item you want. And it should be really, really, really cheap, because you'll be able to find the majority of the corpses yourself, or just buy them for really, really low prices. And that is going to be absolutely incredible. So expect that from me, and also comment down below any findings you guys have tracked down, and hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video and update. The patch is huge, and I can't wait to cover it more. Until next time, cheers.